What if the very thing you're doing to make someone love you is the exact reason they're pulling away? There is a quiet, almost unsettling paradox in human psychology that the ancient Stoics understood, but modern men have completely forgotten. Imagine this. You're standing in front of a woman who seems completely out of your league. She is confident, stunning, and used to men bending over backward, throwing compliments, and practically begging for her attention. Yet, when she looks at you, something is different. She doesn't see another eager suitor trying to win her favor. Instead, she sees a question mark. A riddle she can't quite solve. A man who is entirely contained within himself. What makes this man different? He isn't playing a game. He isn't reciting pickup lines or using manipulative psychological tricks. He has simply tapped into a set of deep emotional truths that govern human behavior, truths that function like gravity, whether we want them to or not. But here's where it gets interesting. Most men try to build attraction logically. They believe if they show enough utility, if they offer enough safety, praise, or financial security, the other person will naturally fall for them. They think attraction is an equation. But human emotions don't care about math. Attraction is intuitive, visceral, and deeply psychological. It responds to forces beneath the surface. Seneca once wrote that true happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence on the future. When you master this specific state of mind, you stop projecting neediness. You stop looking at a woman as a prize to be won or an exam to be passed. You simply exist, grounded and unshakable. And that self-containment is the exact quality that draws others in, desperate to understand what makes you so secure. Let's clear the air before we go any deeper. This is not about manipulation. There is a vast, unbridgeable gulf between understanding human nature and trying to control it. Manipulation is a desperate attempt to force someone to act against their will. It is born of weakness and fear. True psychological understanding, however, is about alignment. It is about knowing the currents of the human mind so you can stop swimming upstream. When you stop begging for validation, you stop chasing. You stop wondering why she suddenly went cold. You become a fixed point in a chaotic world. Epictetus observed that it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. In the realm of attraction, this is your greatest superpower. When you are no longer reactive to her moods, her silence, or her subtle tests, you project a rare, magnetic authority. You become a man who knows his value and refuses to negotiate it. This brings us to the first silent truth of human desire, the profound craving for emotional escapism. Most men believe that what women want most is predictability and comfort. While safety is vital for long-term trust, predictability is the silent killer of attraction. Neurological research suggests that our brains are wired to ignore the constant and seek the novel. When you agree with every opinion she holds, text her at the exact same times every day, and make yourself completely transparent, you erase all tension. You become comfortable, yes, but you also become invisible. Think about the stories that captivate us. We don't watch films about perfect, peaceful days where nothing changes. We watch stories of contrast, of tension and resolution, of dark nights and sudden dawns. Women do not fall for a list of resume virtues. They fall for the emotional landscape a man invites them into. They crave contrast. If you want to step out of the background, you must introduce unpredictability. This doesn't mean being volatile or toxic. It means having the courage to disagree when you genuinely don't see eye to eye. It means not being instantly available whenever she calls. It means sharing stories that reveal depth rather than laying your entire life story out like a cheap brochure. When you create this contrast, you are no longer a static background character. You become an experience. And this leads us directly to the second psychological reality, the unspoken addiction to strong boundaries. Let's look at Michael, a 47-year-old architect. For 3 months, he had been dating a woman he deeply cared about. He did everything he thought a modern romantic should do. He bought her thoughtful gifts, replied to her texts within seconds, and rearranged his work schedule whenever she wanted to meet. Yet, the more he leaned in, the further she drifted. She began canceling plans at the last minute. Her replies grew short, cold, and distant. Michael was baffled. He asked himself, "What am I doing wrong? I am showing her how much I care." But Michael was missing the psychological law of scarcity. When you make yourself infinitely available, your value plummets. Women do not respect men who compromise their own time, their own mission, and their own self-respect just to be accommodating. Michael's constant availability didn't signal love, it signaled a lack of options. It signaled that he had nothing more important going on in his life. So, Michael made a silent vow. He stopped chasing. When she canceled a date, instead of asking when she would be free next, he simply said, "All right, let me know when your schedule clears up," and went back to his work. He reconnected with his passions, spent evenings with his friends, and left his phone in another room. He didn't do this to punish her. He did it to reclaim his life. Within 2 weeks, the dynamic shifted entirely. She was the one reaching out, asking what he was doing, trying to fit into his schedule. Why? Because she realized Michael was not guaranteed. He was a man with a boundary. And a man with boundaries is a man who can walk away. That realization is the bedrock of respect. And without respect, attraction cannot survive. This ties directly into our third concept, the therapeutic power of controlled uncertainty. Why do we get hooked on certain books or movies? It is because we do not know what happens next. The mind hates an unfinished loop. It will obsessively work to close it. Psychologists refer to this as the Zeigarnik effect, our tendency to remember incomplete or interrupted tasks better than completed ones. When a man reveals every detail of his life, his feelings, and his future plans on the first few dates, he closes all the loops. There is nothing left for her mind to work on. But when you leave space, when you allow a little silence to linger, when you don't immediately explain every thought, her mind begins to fill in the blanks. She begins to wonder what you are thinking, where you are, and how you feel about her. That space of quiet contemplation is where obsession is born. It is not born during the moments you are together. It is cultivated in the quiet hours when you are apart. Now, let us examine the fourth pillar, the magnetic pull of leadership. There is a classic dynamic that plays out in countless modern relationships. A man asks, "Where do you want to eat?" The woman replies, "I don't know, what do you think?" The man responds, "Whatever you want is fine with me." It seems polite. It seems respectful. In reality, it is exhausting. It forces her to bear the cognitive load of making decisions. True leadership is not about domination or control. It is about carrying the weight of direction. A man who moves with purpose, who makes decisions and accepts the consequences, is incredibly rare. When you say, "We are going to this restaurant at 8, you're going to love it," you are not being a dictator. You are providing a gift, the gift of structure. You are showing that you have a vision, that you can navigate, and that she can relax in your presence. Epictetus taught that leadership is developed through small, daily choices. It is the practice of standing by your decisions, of being decisive even in the trivial things. When you lead yourself with clarity, others will naturally want to follow. This brings us to the fifth and perhaps most vital truth, the desire for a man who does not need her. No human being wants to be the sole pillar supporting another person's universe. It is a terrifying burden. When you make a partner the center of your world, when your happiness, your mood, and your sense of worth depend entirely on her smile, you place an unsustainable weight on her shoulders. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. A woman wants to be invited into a life that is already full, already exciting, and already moving forward. She does not want to be your destination. She wants to be your companion on the journey. If you have no mission, no deep goals, and no calling that keeps you up at night, you will inevitably turn your relationship into your mission. And that is the fastest way to destroy it. Your purpose must remain the center of your gravity. When she sees that you are fulfilled and focused, she won't feel neglected. She will feel lucky to be a part of your orbit. To apply these principles, you do not need to change who you are. You do not need to wear a mask or pretend to be someone else. You simply need to step into the fullness of your own masculine presence. Start by practicing the art of emotional containment. The next time you feel the urge to double text, to apologize for having an opinion, or to cancel your plans just to please someone else, pause. Remember the words of Seneca. Remember that your time, your focus, and your energy are the most valuable assets you possess. In a world where everyone is chasing, the man who stands still, centered in his own quiet power, is the one who ultimately wins. He does not need to raise his voice. He does not need to prove a thing. If this perspective resonated with you, consider subscribing to the channel. We dive deep into the mechanics of the mind, Stoicism, and the unspoken truths of human nature. Turn on notifications so you do not miss our next exploration. Stay sharp, stay focused, and remember, the strongest man is always the one who is complete within.